Hello, team. We hope you've been enjoying our first Young Justice actual play using Masks: A New Generation. If you'd like to check out the game for yourself, Magpie Games has generously given us 2 ways to help you do that. First, you can link over to www.magpiegames.com and use the discount code WHELMED, WHELMED, all caps, to get 30% off either the softcover or hardcover copy of the game. The discount is good through September 30th, 2017. Second, you can link over to www.patreon.com/crashingthemode and back our show at the Beta Squad level. Beta Squad and higher level backers receive a PDF copy of Masks: A New Generation for free. Lastly, please consider linking over to the ENnie Awards. That's www.ennie-awards.com and supporting Masks with a vote for Best Family Game in one of the role-playing game industry's most sought awards. Voting starts on July 11th. With all that out of the way, let's get on with the show.
Recognized, Uncle Walker, D01. Recognized, Emily of Arden, D12.
Hello, team. Thanks for joining us for Episode 9 of Whelmed, the Young Justice Files Season 2. Welcome to the cave. My name is Rich, and I'm here with my not-a-sidekick, Emily.
Hey, everybody.
If you would like to get in touch with us, you can find us on Twitter at the YJ Files, on Facebook at Crashing the Mode, on our website, crashingthemode.com, on Tumblr at theyjfiles.tumblr.com, and at our email address, whelmedpodcast@gmail.com.
You guess? The cave was just a place worth sacrificing if it helps us stop the invasion. Look, I'm sorry you lost all your souvenirs.
Are you serious? I don't care about that junk. I'm worried about Artemis, terrified for her. You put her right into his hands.
Wally, we're talking about Kaldur here.
I know. Kaldur, our friend, who, in the space of a few months, lost the love of his life and found out Black Manta was his father. Isn't it possible Aqualad might actually be a traitor? A triple agent? He's supposed to be playing them, but are you absolutely sure he isn't playing you?
And with that housekeeping out of the way, let's hand it over to Emily for...
Hello, Megan.
The title of our episode is Darkest. The release date was October 6th, only 1 week after the previous one, because after that hiatus, we're getting back to weekly episodes for a little bit. The in-episode date is March 23rd through 24th. The director is Mel Zwire, and the writer is John Wiseman.
A couple, not really special guest voices, I guess. Like, people voice some different characters here. Danica McKellar voices Tuppence Terror again, who I believe she voiced in the first season as well, which made it easier for her.
I feel like we never heard Tuppence Terror in the first season. We only heard her as Tuppence Terror, but I may be wrong. I feel like I remember hearing Tommy
good.
talk,
That's a
but
good
not
point.
her. That's why it stood out to me.
Oh, I have to go rewatch that for, again, any excuse to go back and rewatch. Yuri Lowenthal does Icicle Jr., Tommy Terror, and Lagan. But what's funny is, I always think it's really funny when the actor has to have a conversation with themselves. Because at one point, Tommy's like, I don't know about you, but I'm harboring some ill will towards Superboy, or whatever he says, and Icicle Jr. is right there. And I have to say, as much as we have been like bagging on, or Lagan, Yuri Lowenthal's good, man. Yeah, all 3 of those voices, I did not know he voiced them. And Tommy Terror, I was absolutely convinced that he was being voiced by Superboy's actor. And I was still convinced rewatching it this time. I was like, oh, because when, you put down Danica McKellar voices Tuppence Terror, I was like, oh yeah, but we should also put down, oh, wait a minute. No, he didn't do that. Nope. It was Yuri Lowenthal. Yuri Lowenthal also did the voice of Superman. He did the voice of Superman as a teenager, which is a weird whole thing. But Superboy, basically, on Superboy and the Legion of Superheroes, that a large number of those episodes, that animated series was directed by Brandon Vietti as well. And he doesn't sound anything.
He's also Teenage Ben 10 for 3 different series.
Is he Ben 10?
That's how I know him. That's how I knew him before he was Lagan.
Whoa. I've only seen a little bit of Ben 10. My kids have been watching the younger Ben 10. I did not know that. He's good.
Yeah.
Why are you laughing at me?
I don't know. Just any nostalgic connection I have to Ben 10 is always interesting because it's such a weird show. And I was just middle school was like, yeah, Ben 10, but only teenage Ben 10. I didn't care about 10-year-old Ben 10, which is like real Ben 10, I say with heavy quotation marks. So that's always fun.
That's funny.
Because he's not Ben 10 in the original. He's just in the once Ben is a teenager. So that may be why you haven't heard him yet.
Oh, yeah. Well, of course. Yeah. I think I saw one Ben 10 episode when he was a teenager. But it doesn't matter. Like, he certainly doesn't sound like Lagan when he's playing Superman. You know, like, he's good. He's a good actor.
Yeah, definitely.
And then last we have the Oded Frere, who voices Ra's al Ghul, who is always fantastic. I always love him. But enough of that nostalgia.
Enough of that going on and on about Ben 10.
On and on about shows we aren't reviewing right now. Let's get on to our mission briefing.
Just in time for your next mission.
So, in our pre-credit scene, we get a look at a manta base in the Gulf of Mexico, where Kaldur has a brief confrontation with an imprisoned Lagoon boy before Lagan is sedated and shipped off to the Light's partner, who we still don't know who that is yet. Black Manta then tells Kaldur that he must do one more thing to earn the Light's trust, and Kaldur ominously agrees to do anything. Dear God.
Just so much stress. Post-credit scene, Kaldur's piloting the Manta Flyer with a contingent of villains. During the trip, Icicle Jr. and the Terror Twins debate Aqualad's new allegiance to Black Manta, since they've all been, pummeled by him at some point in the past. And we find out that an undercover Artemis has adopted the name of Tigress and is operating as Kaldur's new right hand.
We then cut over to El Paso, where Impulse shows up at Jaime's front door, and despite Impulse almost compromising Jaime's secret identity, he suits up and they both make their way out of town to go have some fun, because that's what you do when you're a superhero kid. We then cut over to Ivytown University, where Mal attempts to take his longtime girlfriend Karen out on a date, only to have her brush him off because she's a responsible student who needs to spend some more time in the lab tonight. Mal's not
Hashtag Darcy
happy.
L. Ross. Every time I see this scene with Karen, I think of Darcy Ross, who is constantly posting about, like, we've had another power outage and I have terrible things happening in my lab. I'm just like, I feel so bad.
When Karen runs into Mal while reading the book and walking across campus, I'm just like, same, that is me. All the time.
All right, we briefly cut to a restrained Lagoon boy overhearing some aliens, although he doesn't understand them. They're discussing metagenes and whether or not he may have one. We also learn, as a bit of an aside, that Atlanteans are humans who adapted to being underwater, presumably and potentially because of this metagene, which is interesting. Meanwhile, Jaime and Bart are having some fun messing around with their powers out in the desert, but their little get-together gets crashed by Kaldur and his team of villains, seemingly trying to capture the two boys. Impulse then steals the tracking device that Kaldur had used, he assumes, to find Blue Beetle, and the two heroes make a hasty retreat from the fight that they know they can't win.
The boys then arrive by Zeta Tube at Mount Justice. They explain the situation to Nightwing, who is not too happy about them bringing alien tech into the cave. So it turns out that Kaldur actually had another device that could track the piece of tech that Impulse stole, and that piece of tech that he stole actually apparently hacked and deactivated all of the cave's security once it was brought inside, which isn't that good, and allows Kaldur and his bad guy buddies to infiltrate the team's base.
Bad guy buddies, BGB. Over in the alien lab, Lagan's pod is placed alongside Shimmer's and the teens that we saw back in the episode Beneath. And over at the university lab, Mal attempts to reminisce about high school, but Karen's more focused on her work with Dr. Palmer than on her boyfriend. Meanwhile, back in the cave, the villains are able to infiltrate the cave and take down all the present members of the team using inhibitor collars, except for Blue Beetle. Before the situation can escalate into a super brawl between Blue and 5 villains, Kaldur reveals that he's brought another alien bomb with him, and that if he lets go of the dead man switch for any reason, it will destroy Mount Justice and everyone in it.
This threat forces Beetle to surrender to protect his friends, and Kaldur takes him, Impulse, and Beast Boy as specimens for metagene research, but he leaves behind Nightwing and Superboy, and he leaves them there with the bomb, just,
As one does.
As one does. As the new prisoners are herded onto the Manta Flyer, the Scarab disobeys Jaime's orders and takes control of the armor, attacking their captors in an attempt to escape. And during the resulting fight, the dead man's switch is knocked out of Kaldur's hand, but Mount Justice remains intact, revealing that he was apparently bluffing the entire time. However, before Blue can attack him, Kaldur and Tigress knock him out and load him and all of the other prisoners onto the ship.
On the ride back to Black Mana's base, Tommy and Icicle Jr. question Kaldur's loyalty for having it been a bluff with the bomb, and as a result, Kaldur orders Artemis/Tigress to push the detonator. I'm sorry, that scene was like, what the what? Just the push of a button, all of Mount Justice is destroyed in a fiery explosion. Oh, God, I so feel for Mal in this. Like, God, the voice actor doing Mal's breaking voice while he's talking to people. Mal sees the destruction from a distance, calls the League for backup before rushing to help. There he finds that everyone who we thought was stuck in the cave did manage to escape on the supercycle before the explosion, but they're out in the water, nearly drowning.
Later that night, after everybody's been rescued from the ocean, Wally zetas to the Hall of Justice and talks to Nightwing about what the heck just happened. 'Cause what?
'Cause what?
Yeah. Nightwing explains that the whole thing was apparently a complex ploy by Kaldur to both earn the Light's trust and pass Nightwing crucial information. But Wally's not happy with all of these justifications, and their conversation quickly escalates into an intense argument. Wally is terrified for Artemis and even puts forth the idea of Kaldur being a triple agent who might actually be genuinely working with Black Manta. In our final scene, Black Manta officially introduces Kaldur to the Light, who welcome him and tell him that he'll soon be meeting their partner.
Can I do it now?
Dun dun dun.
Oh, you beat me to it. Dude, there's Aster in this, but it's like painful. So painful.
It's so painful.
Let's do this.
Superboy, are you alright?
I'm fine. Feeling the Aster.
Oh, can I start?
Go for it, Rich.
They blew up the cave.
They blew up the cave.
I have so much to say, and that's like the last thing on my list, and that's the only thing that gets me. And I when I was rewatching it this time, I realized that it was an extra gut punch because Kaldur's been doing some crazy, questionable things. We've said this the whole time, right? Like, whether or not he's a traitor or not is irrelevant because of the fact that if he is a traitor, that sucks. If he's not a traitor, he's got to live with these terrible freaking choices that he's making where people are dying and terrible things are happening. So when he gets knocked unconscious and the dead man switch comes out of his hand and the bomb doesn't blow up, I was relieved and also worried because I was like, what does that mean for Kaldur? And okay, maybe this does mean that he's not a traitor, blah, blah, blah. And then the Scarab just takes over. Like, didn't we talk about this in a previous episode? This kind of like Jaime he can't control the Scarab. Like, he can talk the Scarab down, but we know clearly he cannot mentally force the Scarab to do anything.
But this is the first time we see it fully take control. Like, in previous episodes, he started to take control and Jaime like forced him down. And in this, he just, what?
It is clearly Jaime has to make some kind of charisma skill check to talk the Scarab down from freaking plasma cannoning all of his friends, which makes every one of those previous scenes really worrying. Like, if the Scarab wanted to do whatever it wanted to do, it would just do it. It could just do it. That's not okay. Yeah. But then on top of that, they get into the flyer, they're flying away, and they blow up the cave. So after I've just been relieved, and relieved in a weird way, though, because it's Young Justice. So I was like, oh, man, I'm a little surprised they didn't blow up the cave. Because Young Justice doesn't pull punches. And like a regular cartoon regular animated series. They wouldn't want to blow up something that has so much nostalgic value to the team and to the watchers because it has consequences. And then they blew it up. So I felt relieved. And then while my guard was down, they blew it up anyway. And then, of course, I remember the scene with Neutron in the previous episode where he's still standing in the gutted crater of Mount Justice and realize, oh, I should have seen that coming. Like, if I had remembered that episode, I would have realized that's what was going to happen. But, oh my gosh, jeez. Okay, I just had to get all that off my chest. I got to recover from that, so.
I understand. It is painful, and rewatching it, the moment that Artemis and Kaldur have right before they do that breaks my heart, because Kaldur looks at her and just says, do it. And she asks, are you sure? And he doesn't say yes. He just says, do it. Because he knows he has to. He doesn't want to. And he's not sure. He just has to. And it breaks my heart every time. Because and in that moment, they show her as Artemis, which also breaks my heart.
Yeah, because Kaldur sees her as Artemis, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so good. But like, okay, so let's back up. We'll back up a little bit. I had some other things we were talking about. So in a recent previous episode, we were talking about how we weren't sure whether or not Jaime's parents knew that he was a hero. And a lot of that comes from this scene in this episode, because Impulse shows up on his front porch. Jaime is upset that he showed up in costume and kind of closes the door behind him or something. And then he's like, all right, well, let's get out of here. And so he shape changes on the street. Like, he turns into the beetle form and flies away. So in my head, I'm like, oh, he must be worried about his parents. Like, okay, it takes you literally like 1001, 1002. Like, it takes you less than 2 seconds to turn into beetle. But you're on a freaking suburban street. Like, there wasn't somebody walking their dog and happened to be looking in your direction. Like, if your parents knew that you were a superhero, why didn't you just let him in the house and then change and then fly out the back or something?
Because having dinner with the parents is not as much fun as going into the desert and breaking rocks with laser cannons. That's fair, but you could have had him in the house when he transformed. I don't know. Well, we didn't know, and we had one of our listeners on Twitter had pointed out that they do know because he's a minor and the League had to tell his parents about it. And I had forgotten about that bit because they did the same thing with Artemis. And in the comics, our friends at the YJ Wiki actually sent us a clip of the comic scene where Jaime finds out from, I think, Nightwing that, oh, we told your parents. And he's like, wait, what? Which is great. So check the comics out for that scene. But yeah, it was really weird. It was kind of a little bit weird that he shape changed right on the front porch. That was a little odd to me. I agree. That's bad superhero identity keeping.
Right. Considering he's so wound up about it. Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, the other thing that I wanted to say, we also were speculating about maybe in Crashing the Mode. Oh, I know what it was. It was Beneath, when we were kind of crashing the mode on some stuff that shows up in Beneath. We were talking about Beetle being vulnerable to mystic energy, and Kaldur says that in this, and I had totally forgotten about that because he electrocutes him, and I was like, oh, Beetle has an electricity vulnerability? That's weird, because we see scenes where that's not the case, and then, oh, wait a minute, but it's not normal electricity. This is bioelectric, mystically enhanced bioelectric stuff, which means that that the Beetles do have a kryptonite, which is the same kryptonite that Superman has. You know, well, he literally has kryptonite, but also magic. So, yes, I actually did that. Yeah. Anyway, and I love Karen doing lab work. I love seeing any, like, student looking like they're being a student, but also the fact that I think Darcy Ross and Ishan Sherwood both brought up in their episodes on diversity and that kind of thing. Not just seeing a female person of color, highly intelligent scientist doing research. I freaking love it. I love it. I love it. I love it.
I agree. More of this. More of this now.
Yeah. More of it everywhere, please.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah. I don't know. What do you have?
I had some other things that I loved about this, and other things that I hadn't quite registered until I was going back rewatching it. When Kaldur first comes into the cave, Sphere rolls up to him and he just puts a hand on her and she just rolls away. And then they have the same thing happen with Wolf.
Yeah, when he smells.
And it's because Artemis is the one in the room. And it's, of course, it's Artemis that he wouldn't freak out about. I'm like, oh, they're going to have Wolf like freak out and Wolf's going to find somebody and they're going to do that. But it's Artemis and Wolf's chill with Artemis.
Yep.
And I'm like, that is genius.
It was genius. And as much as I'm sorry, for those of you, some of you who listen to us probably already listened to a podcast called Campaign, which is a Star Wars actual play podcast that everybody should go listen to. It's brilliant. But they have a pet wolf, Star Wars wolf, called a Vornskier, and they're constantly joking that the wolf has greater than human intelligence and psychic powers. And every time I see Wolf in Young Justice, all I can think of is Tony. That's the name of their Vornskier, Tony Vornskier. I can't remember what his middle name is. Anthony Allen Vornskier or something. Somebody has to correct me. Anyway, so every time I see Wolf, I know that he has greater than wolf-like intelligence. But seeing this scene, I'm realizing like of course he doesn't quote unquote know Artemis is dead. Like he probably registers that everybody's sad about something and that he hasn't seen Artemis in a while, but he isn't intellectually human level grasping the things that people are saying around him. I would like him to be even more intelligent than that, but no, they're keeping him pretty much just around wolf intelligence. And that made this scene really interesting.
Because you think that they're going to do that, and then he doesn't, and it's great. And he's just like taking a nap on the couch, not thinking anything's weird.
But you know what I just realized just now? How messed up is it that Artemis put a collar back on him after that's how he was turned into who he was and Superboy had to free him the last time? I only just now realized how messed that up. I know, I get it, but like, it's not the same as like a bunch of aliens dying or blowing up the cave, I guess, but it's kind of messed up for like basically a friend of yours for the last 5 years to put him back into the same bondage, like slavery collar that he had before. That's kind of messed up.
Because Rich really, really, really loves animals.
I was a veterinary nurse for 10 years. Come on.
I understand. I love the animals too. I just find it amusing that you're so much more annoyed by that than by them like attacking all of their human friends.
Yeah, that doesn't bother me. Dude, I played. There's a video game called Splinter Cell, and I would sneak through there and I would snipe the bad guys and you get like 3 taser shots, and I would use them on the dogs. There's 3 dogs. I would tase the dogs, and my roommate would go insane. He was like, "You can take out like 20 bad guys in a pool if you just save them." I'm like, "I am not shooting these dogs. I'm not doing it." He's like, "I can't believe you're using the tasers on these dogs." Anyway, that's going in the bloopers, I think. Anyway, sorry, Neil.
Coming back from that. Also gonna point out, still being in the cave, I love Beast Boy's room, and I love that we get a look in Beast Boy's room. I feel like I've talked about like room design and set design before, and I don't know why. I'm not an artist. I shouldn't focus on this stuff as much as I do. But they show Beast Boy's room, and they show all of the stuff in Beast Boy's room, and it's so him, and it's so cute.
I never noticed it until I was rewatching it this time, because I saw that you made a comment about it and you put a screenshot in our notes. And can you break it down for me? What is he seeing here? Is there is that Superman? He's got a poster of Superman.
Oh, it's so cute. He's got like a whole bookshelf full of action figures. He's got a boogie board just leaning against the wall, which amuses me because they live on a beach. So of course he does.
Oh, of course he does. Yeah.
He's got like posters of dragons and dinosaurs and all those little
There's a Martian Manhunter poster. There looks like a Martian Manhunter
one,
poster.
A Robin one, and a Superman one.
Oh my God, there's a picture of his mom next to the TV. Yep.
There's a giant Hello Megan poster, a picture of his mom on his dresser, and he's watching Hello Megan on his phone when we find him, and it breaks my heart so much.
Oh my God.
Because it's just a throwaway line. They just play the audio clip of her saying Hello Megan, and I die because I'm like, you're watching your mom because you're alone, and I'm not okay. But yeah.
I don't know. I've said on when I guested on a few podcasts. I was interviewed on a podcast called Talking tabletop with Jim McClure, and he had asked me one of the reasons why I do what I do or why I'm doing podcasts. And I was telling him that a lot of why I do the podcast is so my kids, when they grow up, can hear their dad, talking about a thing he loves with people he loves, I don't get to do that with my dad, from growing up. So I super relate to him watching this, It's got to be nostalgic. Because it sounds like in the original episode where we see that, he's really barely watched the show. He didn't even know where the tape was. And now he has it digitally copied and on his phone. Because he said it was not available anywhere, right?
Oh.
Sorry, you derailed me, and now we're all sad again.
Now we're all gonna cry. All just gonna cry. This is the episode where me and Rich just cry.
God. There's so many of them.
So, moving on from the sadness... Tommy Terror's design in this episode is super different. Yeah. And I went and Googled it because I wanted to make sure that I wasn't crazy. But no, they completely redesigned him in this season. And I have so many questions about why. I just want to know how and why. Go for it.
Well, first of all, I haven't done that much research on their history, and I don't know them from the comics. I don't really know how they got their powers, but also, when they first ran into them, they were 15 or 16, right?
Yeah.
So now he's 22. So, yeah, I know some big muscular guys at 16, but he may very well have had his powers escalate. He may have continued to mutate. He may have simply been literally superhero working out at the superhero gym. But you're not wrong. It seems like more than that though. His bone structure.
Yeah. The reason I question it is because he doesn't look like a muscular human. He looks gigantic, while Tuppence looks exactly the same.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
Why I question it.
I would be really surprised if they hadn't done there wasn't a reason. There's some story.
I'm sure there's a reason.
Greg's
I just want to know what it is.
Yeah. Well, and you know what? They're working for the light. Not the light. Well, they're looking for the light, but they're also looking for the Reach. No, but the Reach were only just introduced, though. I was going to say maybe the Reach kind of turned him up to 11, but I don't know. Anyway, what else do you got here?
The whole fight with everybody putting inhibitor collars on everyone is cool, but the Artemis Nightwing part of it is so cool.
That flying sidekick when she comes flying into that frame and just
Artemis has a tendency to
Nightwing
kick
down.
people in the head. If you rewatch season 1, she does it regularly, but it's awesome to see it come back. And she just takes down Nightwing of all people, just flies into the frame, knocks him on the ground, and is just collar done, out. And I'm just how I want to be you right now.
I think he just stood up from having Superboy thrown at his face as well.
And with the animation for that, when she flying side kicks him in the face, he spins around in a complete circle, and it makes me laugh. In this intense battle moment, they just have him cartoon spin.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he clearly gets pummeled. I also love that. It's small things, but it's when the little alarm goes off when he's scanning the alien device, and he's he doesn't say again what not to animate, what not to write. Yeah. He didn't say, "Oh no, there's this device has a tracking device in it." He doesn't repeat data we already know.
Yeah.
He just goes, "Oh, I'm so stupid," and then he pulls out his Eskrima sticks. And turns around in time for Superboy to get thrown into his face. It's great. And we get to see Artemis doing something that we didn't before. In the first season, she did some melee fighting, but she was really an archer. And now we're seeing no, everybody. That scene where Aqualad freaking takes Superboy down like a pro. These non-melee really characters. I guess Kaldur was a little bit, but you can tell there's 5 years of training and improvement and tactics, and I love it. So good.
Yeah. Speaking of Superboy, the fact that they find Superboy and take Superboy down in the grotto breaks my heart, that he's just standing there looking at Artemis, and then they just take him down.
Yeah.
Ugh, everything. It's the little things. He doesn't even say anything. They don't have him say. They just take him to. My heart.
Yeah, but he hears them, but a second too late.
Yeah. And speaking of, I don't even think I wrote this down, but the fact that Ice School Junior is still harping on Tuppence terror amuses me,
Right.
and I'm just throwing that out there. I love any reference to terrors. People should know this by now, but I like it that they bring that back. Continuity nods. And then, of course, we get to that last scene. Oh, God, that last scene.
The Wally and Dick scene is so good for so many reasons, but as much as I love Nightwing, I definitely have... I walk a thin line because I've said it in a previous episode. I hate when somebody has all the information and they're just not giving it to other people for no reason. It bothers me. For some reason, it doesn't make me ecstatic, but it doesn't bug me as much in this season. I can see how it might bother some people, but the idea that there are so many team members and they don't know how the light operates, and there's so much stuff that could go wrong, because if Kaldur is seen as anything except 100% what he's doing, he could just be killed, right? He is deep undercover. So part of me is it may be justification, but part of me is like, I'm not happy with it. I think it should have been handled differently. I think he should have told the core team members, like Superboy, he should. I mean, clearly he should have told McGann, based on how terrible things happen later. We'll crash the mode on that maybe, but I still kind of understand. Having said that, you'd think that I would, being as much a Dick Grayson fan as I am, you'd think I'd be backing him in this fight. But this is such a good Wally moment. It's a Wally grown up adult, get in your friend's face moment, right? It's intense.
The moment where Wally breaks and just starts screaming gives me chills every single time. Because he's trying to stay calm. He tries to go into that room and be like, what happened? Explain this to me. He wants Dick to justify it for him. He wants Dick to explain this and make him less terrified. And he can't. And so Wally just breaks.
Yep. He can't do it. And he breaks when, I hate to say it, when Dick gets super condescending. Like, I'm sorry you lost all your stuff. You know, like, I think we talked about this with Jason Spizak too. Like, that moment where we're realizing, where even Dick is realizing that Wally's changed. He's grown up, you know?
It's that when he says, I guess it had to be done or something like that. And Wally's like, you guess? You guess. And I'm like, oh my God, I am not okay. They're yelling at each other. It's heartbreaking. And also just the fact that they stage that in the Hall of Justice. And thinking about it, how they have those moments early on where Dick's like, we should go investigate Cadmus, and Wally sticks by him. Wally's willing to go with it, and we get this scene in that same location.
If you're going, I'm going. Yep, that's a good point too.
Breaks my heart.
That's a really good point. I love it. Oh, all right.
I just want to say, last thing with that argument, when Dick Grayson, when Nightwing says it was necessary, breaks my heart, because we have all those things in that first season of Robin being like, I'm never going to be Batman. I'm never going to go to that point where I say it's necessary for bad things to happen to the people I care about to do the greater good. I don't have that in me. On and on and on. That's so much of season one. And then we just get him so casually. Just goes, it was necessary. I'm like, no, you're doing the thing. You're becoming him. Don't become him. Don't do that.
I have a comment about that, but we have to crash the mode on that one.
Okay.
So we'll dive into that.
I just wanted to throw that out there.
Okay. Canary Debrief.
Stick around. Class is in session.
William Faulkner famously said, kill your darlings. And what he meant by that was, as a writer, there are things that you're going to love in your book. There's going to be a phrase, like a piece of dialogue, a character, something that you have in the story that you want to keep no matter what, even though there's a part of you that understands it's ruining your book, your short story, your script, whatever it happens to be. You're bending over backwards to make everything else not be quite right so that you can keep this thing in. The Cave blowing up is a form of killing your darlings. We see this a lot in Young Justice. Consequences to actions. The cave, ending so much of what happened in season 1, the home the team had made in that kind of a way, and pushing the whole team forward. This world is not static. The world changes, and the characters have to change around them. This is not something we see in standard animation. This lays the groundwork for continued suspicion of Aqualad, knowing that he is really not a traitor. The writers are just piling on events that he is going to have to live with for the rest of his life. Dick was right. The cave was just a place. It was a place, but it's like losing the home you grew up in. They'd been there for 6 years now, 5.5 years by the time the cave blows up. To pull it back to what we were just saying, Beast Boy just lost. Who knows if it's the only picture of his mom, you know? The stuff that's in those people's rooms that live in that cave aren't throwaway things, right? So the cave was a place, but it's a place where people lived. Beast Boy has no home as far as we know. That's where he lives. And he's been there since he was 8? That's horrible. Doing so, though, allows... Oh, I broke Emily.
I'm fine.
Doing so,
I'm not crying about talking about a cartoon. I'm fine.
We needed that.
Shut up, internet.
Killing your darlings lets you move your story forward. Recognizing what your darlings are is very hard. Do some research, listen to people who read your stuff or watch your stuff. Make sure you hear what they're saying if they're saying that something doesn't sound right or sounds forced. They're probably right. Take it out. Fix the writing. If you don't like the new version, you can go back to what you did before. But don't keep it in just to keep it in. I'm going to veer off and give a personal story here about my own writing. I had started to write a young adult novel. I had been dead set on the main character based on my nephew Carter being in middle school. I tried for 6 months to write this novel, constantly with the character in my head telling me, I'm a freshman in high school, I don't know what you're doing. And me saying, I don't know how to write a freshman in high school. I'm writing the stupid book. You're 10. Stop telling me what to do with my own book. So I argued with that character for 6 months. This is how writers work. They have voices in their head. I said, fine, I'm tired of having this argument. I will write the scene as you're a freshman. And everything came into place. That was my killing my darlings. I don't know why I was dead set on him being in middle school, but once I set him as a freshman in high school, everything started to make sense. So listen to the characters in your head, listen to your editors and the people who read your stuff. It'll make for better writing. To
give a little side tangent of a thing, not from my own writing, but from a series that I adore. It's big influence on my whole life. It's called The Inheritance Cycle. It's about dragons. It's in the background of my thing.
I see.
Right now. But yeah, the series ended up being 4 books, was originally meant to be a trilogy, but the author has talked many times, Christopher Paolini, the author, has talked many times about how he wrote out a whole timeline before starting. He knew what points needed to be hit and everything. And he went into the second book knowing in his head that the main character, Aragon, and his kind of love interest, an elf named Arya, were going to get together by the end of the second book. This was in his head. This was kind of... He has said that their relationship would have been different, is how he said it, but the way it's written, it implies that they were supposed to be together by the end of book 2. Writing book 2, he realized that for them to get together, both characters would have to act completely differently than what made sense for them at the time.
Yes.
So where Arya was in her storyline and her personality, and where Aragon was in his immaturity, it would have made no sense for her to agree to be in love with him and all of that. And he had to go back and rewrite all of book 2 because they are central characters in that. And he realizes, like, this is not how any of their interactions should be going. And that then had to change the course of the entire series from that point on. People ask, like, wait, does that mean that this scene in book 4 would have been different? He's like, yeah, when I originally plotted it, she did this, he did this, and this happened. And I'm like,
yep.
what?
Yeah.
How? And it's all because he realized after writing his first draft of the second book in the series that he could not put two characters together that he had originally entire imagining of this story. He was like, they need to be together. And then he realized they can't be together. It doesn't make any sense for them to get together at this point. So, yeah.
Yeah, the same thing happened in that same book I was telling you about. There's a scene that was dead set in my head where the main character of Carter and his best friend Steven were supposed to get in a big argument, and Steven was supposed to storm off. He was supposed to leave, he was supposed to run into some stuff by himself and uncover some things and come back into the story. When I got to writing the scene, the way that it panned out, I loved the scene, but if Steven had left, all sympathy for Steven would have gone away. He would have gone from being a friend who was trying to question and help his friend to being a raging jerk who couldn't be a friend that a good friend should be. And by the end of the scene, he ended up staying in the chapter. And I was like, well, crap, now what am I supposed to do? Like, okay, I can't have him. I just can't. I can't have him leave. It makes no sense. Of course, that's what needed to happen in the next chapter ended up being great with him being present, and I figured out a way to get those plot points in. It takes more work, but what comes out is going to feel much smoother, much more natural, and make much more sense. When you've heard me say the things, if a character is supposed to go left, don't make them go right, this is what I'm talking about. Sweet. Let's do this. Let's crash this mode. We got stuff.
Tell us something we don't know yet.
Sorry, BB. We can't risk altering the time stream. We do that, we're all feeling the mode.
There is stuff.
Oh, yeah. You start with this one.
So, one thing I picked up on in this watch through that I'm not really sure had ever stuck in my head before, during that opening confrontation between Kaldur and Lagan is throwing all of those insults at Kaldur as he does, and Kaldur responds with, I am aware of my role in the larger picture, are you? And that just, when by the end of the episode, when they throw out the idea that Kaldur could be a triple agent, which we know is not true, but those two things combined make you really think. You're like, wait, does he mean that, is he referencing the fact that he knows he's a double agent and knows what he has to do, or is he referencing other things? I'm confused. But yeah, that's a good line. Because Kaldur knows what he has to do, even when it's not good.
The fact that they pull, like, by episode 4 or 5, we realize that he's not a traitor, but not really. We think we do. Because that's the first thing. Again, the writers are looking at it from what is the Watcher thinking? The Watcher's thinking Kaldur can't be a traitor. So let's make them worry for a little bit and then allay those fears. And then find a way to bring those fears up again. Instead of letting it last all season as to whether or not he's a traitor or not. You get relief and then more stress. And relief and more stress. It's increasing jeopardy. The jeopardy status, which I'm going to talk about, I think, in the next episode as well. Yeah. The one thing that I wanted to bring up, I almost crashed earlier, was the vulnerability to the mystic energies thing. Because I realized we talked about that in a previous crashing the mode. The fact that the Beatles have this vulnerability, I didn't realize had been established much earlier in the season in an unrelated situation.
Yeah,
so
he hadn't been up against somebody.
Yeah, they yeah, does he end up? No, he doesn't go against like Black Adam or... Yeah, no, actually none of the mystical villains from the first season come back, huh? We don't see Wotan, we don't...
We see Clarion in a picture of the light. That's about it.
Oh yeah, we do see Clarion.
He's still part of the light in this episode. We see that at the end. But
am I wrong? Do we not see Clarion this whole season?
It's not ringing any bells. I can't think of a moment, but we'll see. We'll see. We'll get later in this season. It'll be a whole episode on Clarion. We're like, how'd we forget? No, that won't happen.
No, of course. I don't think that'll happen. But I don't think he was at the summit. He wasn't in Summit.
I don't remember him.
Interesting. Yeah. Oh man, but the scarab. So the scarab thing too. Through the whole season, the scientists keep saying, like, I want to know why it went off mode. And so now we find, like, this mystical thing happened. But it didn't just shut the scarab down, because I think in the comics, they even allude to the fact that the original Blue Beetle from back in the 30s used the scarab and then, I guess, died. And then the scarab went back into, some kind of, stasis or whatever. At least that's what it seemed to be. Because there's a picture of the original Blue Beetle with the same wings. But the scientists said the only information they have is from several years before when Jaime found him. 8 months or something. Not years, like 8 months or something.
Months.
Yeah. And
I don't know.
The idea that it's not that the scarab is... I guess in my head, I always pictured like the scarab can't do anything unless it's attached to someone else, and if it's attached to someone else, it still can't do anything without the permission of the wearer. And as many times as I've watched this, it just didn't register to me that it's basically, it sounds like what the magical thing happened back in the day. What happened was that they basically gave the scarab free will. Like, that's what ended up happening. Right? Because Jaime has to talk it down. And it's not choosing most of the time to take over Jaime and do whatever it wants. It could. Clearly it can. Right?
Yeah.
So,
which is terrifying.
Which makes the scarab much more interesting to me and makes much more sense at the end of the season when the scarab says, Jaime Reyes, if this is all you've learned... Sorry, I'm choking up. If this is all you've learned from our time together, right? But that all makes much more sense to me now.
Yeah.
That the scarab really, it's a jerk. It's programmed. It only knows killing. Like, it's not a kind, supportive creature, but it is independent, and it is choosing to do or to not do things because of its relationship with Jaime, not some biological mechanical control. That's so interesting to me.
You had something you wanted to say about Nightwing. I don't know what it is.
Oh yeah,
because all our outline says Nightwing.
Oh yeah, but we were just talking about it. What was it?
Some about Dick Grayson acting like Batman and how that makes me sad because he didn't want to be Batman.
Oh, I know it. Thank you so much. It's the very last episode of the season where Nightwing's like, this is too much. I can't do this anymore, Kaldur. That's what gets me. Like, when I see this scene and I see him being the Batman, being the character he didn't want to be in season 1, yeah. That scene, that argument with Wally to me is what nails home to me that Dick slowly was getting a glimpse at what Bruce has accepted and like made a part of him. And by the end of the season, it's like, I had to do these things, and I hate every minute of the fact that I had to do all these things. I need a break, Kaldur. I need a break. I've got to go do something else. So to me, I feel like it does get resolved a little. For me, anyway, it gets resolved to a point where I understand that Dick is like, this was terrible. And I can't wait to see what happens with him in the next season and see if he ends up being part of this Outsiders group and see if he finds a different way to be him that's not Bruce. Yeah.
That moment where he says it was necessary and all of that and everything, I feel like it's also done really well, but that's just one moment that's been building up for a while. Because, like, that's the moment where it really clicked for me. I'm like, oh, wait, everything you're doing is so very Batman. But looking back on episodes previous, like, even the thing where he says, when they ask, like, how'd you get this from Zatanna? And he's just like, just trust me, whatever, it's fine. It's like, you're just taking things from people and not explaining what these would do. You're just going and doing things and not fully realizing the consequences of them. So, like, that's not what I meant to say. That's not what I meant to say, but that's how I said it. Let me think if I can think about that better. He doesn't...
Go ahead.
he doesn't, it's implied that he doesn't tell Zatanna what this is for. And I feel like knowing Zatanna and knowing everything that we know about Zatanna, which is not a whole lot, but what we know about Zatanna, I don't think she would be comfortable doing this if she knew what it was for, or that she'd be comfortable giving it over without. No, I have no idea what I'm trying to say here. Please just ignore everything I've tried to say for the past 5 minutes.
No. I think I hear what you're saying. I don't know if I totally agree with you, but I don't totally disagree with you. Hearing what you're saying and how I picture Dick Grayson, my headcanon. Dick has spent his life being that charismatic leader who has built trust for a reason for years. Yes. And when he needs a favor or he needs something from someone, people are happy to do it for him because they trust that his intentions are good, right? That's his superpower. Yes. If he has a superpower, his superpower is allies, right? It's not super acrobatics and blowing stuff up or whatever. I don't know. It's the fact that he gets people to trust him so much. So yes, I believe that when he goes to Zatanna and he says, this is what I need and this is all I can tell you, I think Zatanna would do it for him without thinking twice about it. But I think your point is valid because I think at this point he's almost a little compromised. He's making, okay, this is a little skewed from what I would normally do, but it's okay. Well, now I'm a little skewed from that. And now I'm in argument with Wally in the Hall of Justice about how Kaldur has just blown up the cave, and I'm trying to justify Kaldur's actions, and even I am not believing myself right now. Yeah. And then by the end of the season, realizing I need to step away because I'm compromising trust. I'm compromising my friends. I'm compromising people's trust in me as a leader. I need to step away and get recentered again. That's the way I think of it. So I think you're right. I think if Zatanna did know, she would be like, why aren't you telling people? Like, you need to tell people what's happening. This could go badly. And you need to trust more people than just a couple of people involved. You know?
Yeah. That is everything I was trying to say and couldn't formulate words because... Fun fact, I once, way back in the day, when season 2 was premiering, I wrote, and it's somewhere online, and I'm not telling anyone what the title is, so people can't connect it to me. I wrote a conversation between Nightwing and Zatanna post finding out Artemis was alive and all of that reveal of her just kind of shouting at him, like, why the heck didn't you tell me? You can't just involve people in your schemes and not... let them know. You can't pull people into things and not let them know what they're being a part of. Because, like,
I don't disagree.
That's out there in the world. But yeah.
Neil, you've now heard that that's out there in the world somewhere.
No one try to find it. Please, dear God, it's not well written. I was a youngin'.
Fair enough. All right, speaking of that, let's go to fan service.
I've admired your stance on animal rights for years.
All right, I've got the fan service this week. The fan service this week is one that I've actually been meaning to do for a while, and I'm so sorry to the creator that I haven't gotten to this yet. At least I hope I haven't gotten to this yet. I don't think I have. They do not have, as far as I know, the Young Justice soundtracks for sale on iTunes, unfortunately. But there's a gentleman named Enrique Betancourt who has put together the suites for season 1 and season 2 that you can listen to on YouTube. He also, I noticed, has the suites of music for the Justice League versus the Teen Titans as well. So if you're looking for some inspirational background music for yourself or for a game you're running or anything like that, go link over to YouTube and check that out. And thanks to him for all the work. I think he's a sound engineer.
That's so weird that
right?
they're not on iTunes because they do exist. The season 1 soundtrack at least exists. I think it might be both seasons, but there's a volume 1 that exists on Amazon and some other places but it's so weird that it's not on iTunes. Cool.
Yeah.
Now you know.
So go check that out. And again, thanks for all the work, Enrique. We appreciate it. Well, I think we can wrap this mission up and head out of the cave. Oh, wait. We can't say the cave anymore.
It's fine. It exists in our world. Head out of the rubble.
Well, I think we can wrap up this mission and head out of the crater.
Crying forever.
Oh, God. The best way to support the show and help us buy more Kleenex is with 5-star reviews on iTunes or your podcatcher of choice. As we'd mentioned before, we've topped 3,000 listeners now, and it's increasing pretty rapidly, and we really appreciate everyone who's boosted the signal for the show. But we only have about 1% or less of those listeners have come by and popped a rating or a review up on iTunes. Giving us a 5-star rating takes us literally a second. Going to iTunes, just click on the 5-star, you're done. You don't have to write a full review. But having all of those ratings really does help the show get in front of new, fresh viewers, and we appreciate every one of them.
And while you're crying because the cave's gone, just please continue to hashtag keep binging YJ and hashtag buy YJ comics on Comixology. You can also use hashtag Young Justice Outsiders when talking about season 3 and all of that awesomeness. And if you want to help us get more episodes, Secret Origins, actual play podcasts, and everything else that we do, please consider supporting us through Patreon. For just a few dollars a month, you can help us do even more with the show while getting some great rewards for yourself. And remember,
stay whelmed, everyone.
You've been listening to Whelmed, the Young Justice Files podcast. Our hosts are Rich Howard and Emily Booza. Our editor and producer is Neil Powell. Our theme was composed by Emily Mio. Our logo was created by Kevin Bates. Whelmed is a fan-made podcast and is not officially affiliated with DC Comics, DC Entertainment, Warner Brothers Animation, and any other owners of Young Justice or its related source material. As such, these companies have sole ownership of all symbols, images, names, logos, and proprietary material related to Young Justice. Original content of this podcast is ours under Creative Commons. Thanks for listening, and stay whelmed.